All right, we are live. What is going on, everybody? Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us to one of the new additions to a certain point of view here on the channel. As you can see, myself, Jake Berlin, I am joined by Mr. Sean Sullivan, and we are here to review, talk about, discuss, theorize, whatever you want to call it, Lord of the Rings of Power. A show that neither of us have really spoken out about much over the past couple weeks.
We were waiting for this.
Yeah, I know. We have an opportunity to talk about it now and kind of dive into everything that is Middle Earth in this new age. Sean, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I said I was going to make a thing, and I forgot to make it till tonight. So, just rushing to get that made. But hey, I'm here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. Because look, this Lord of the Rings is something that I know very little about. Very little. I know the movies. There's a lot of information inside the movies that I still don't know. And so you're pretty much the expert when it comes to the two of us.
Between the two of us,
out of the two of us,
there's a lot of people. Here. There's a lot of people you could put in this seat that would be much more experts than I am.
But I'm going to learn just as much from you as I would anybody else.
I think so. I definitely think we should have a segment of you just asking questions because that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Like how many of them have Galadriel in them?
So funny thing, I actually asked that question on last week's Bar Trivia for the Patreon, and I was wrong on how many she's in. Andy corrected me.
It's counting the Hobbit films?
Yes.
Well, she's in all 3 Lord of the Rings films.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in the second Hobbit film.
She's in 2 Hobbit movies.
Oh, is she? Okay. All right.
Apparently she narrates one.
Yeah, but does that count?
Apparently it does.
I don't know that counts.
So Andy got the point. He argued and he got the point. So technically, I guess it does for his sake. For his sake, it does. So
that's fair. She's so Galadriel's like, okay, how do we want to structure this?
So we have 3 episodes to talk about tonight. We're not going to take forever to do it because we can talk a little bit more about the third than we can the first 2, kind of like an overall thing. But yeah, the structure is just.
I feel like not a lot happened in the first 2.
No, it was a lot of setup.
The first 2 are beautiful, beautiful episodes of television. They really did a good job of showing their budget that everyone's talked about. Everyone keeps talking about how big of a budget this show had. But I don't know that there was a lot of content there. Like,
I agree.
It kind of introduced us to the cast of characters. I think it's introduced us to everyone with 2 exceptions. Yeah. We haven't seen we have not seen Isildur's brother, Anarion, and we haven't seen the gentleman with the white buzz cut from the trailer.
Yeah, and the white hood and everything, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know who that is. I have some guesses, but
as does everybody else. Except me, because I have no idea.
Well, I mean, look, we know he's someone evil. He looks evil, right? But whether or not
is he a servant of Morgoth? Is my answer.
He could be a servant of Morgoth. Okay, so let's talk about Morgoth. I'm not going to throw any shade. But if you were watching another program and the question came as to whether Morgoth was betrayed by Sauron or slain by Sauron, he wasn't. Sauron is his bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Sauron is Morgoth's bitch.
Sauron is a servant of Morgoth, right?
Yes, 100%, no question. That was So, all right, let's go way back. Lord of the Rings has gods. We don't talk about the gods of Lord of the Rings. There's one god. I don't remember the god's name. It's Onway or something. I don't know.
Let's look.
But below, you have the god, and then you have the Maiar, and the Ishtari, and a bunch of other sub-angel type things. And then you have the Valar and the than the elves. Like that's why elves are immortal, is because they're part of that structure.
Yeah.
They're the children of the angels and the gods in Lord of the Rings.
There's a couple different names that pop up when I type in the Lord of the Rings God.
Yeah, it's let's see.
Valar, Iri, Uvartar.
Luvatar.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce most of them.
Yeah, Iru Iluvatar. Yeah, it would be the supreme deity of Arda, which is Middle Earth. Well, Arda is the planet Middle Earth is on. And then you have the Valar, and then the Maiar, and then the Ishtari. And the wizards, for example, are not human. They're not men. They're angels.
And and thanks to TikTok for this. TikTok can be useful sometimes. I learned that the wizards were essentially meteors that landed on the planet. Or is that wrong?
That is wrong.
Okay.
It's not incorrect. We don't know how they came. We know they came from the west.
But there's 5 of them, right?
There's 5 of them. There's Sauron, Radagast, Gandalf, and then the 2 blue wizards whose names are Nuldo and something else. They went into the east and then kind of disappeared. They never mattered again. So and we know the blue wizards. So we know the blue wizards came first.
Okay.
Actually, okay. Let's come back to this. Let's cover the episodes in order. Hold on. We're getting sidetracked already. All right. So we know that. It's not on Earth, Wingblade. No, it's not. Well, Arda might be Earth, but it also might not be Earth.
It's just a version of Earth, technically, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. It kind of was originally supposed to be, and then wasn't. The more of Tolkien's writings you read, the less it's just Earth. Now, I will off the bat say it's been a while since I've tried to read the Silmarillion. I've never read the Silmarillion all the way through. I've never read the books all the way through. It's a lot of crap. It's a lot of crap. It's all written like poetry. None of it makes sense. So it's a lot to digest. But so the show starts out in the time before the sunrise, whatever.
Yeah.
Time of trees. We see the elves go east to Middle Earth, and we see a war against Morgoth, and we see the tree die, and they kind of skim over a lot of stuff there. Now, this is where kind of the discussion's interesting. The reason they skim over it is because they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. So everything they're covering is just from Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and the appendices, and they're kind of filling in the gaps. But the Lord of the Rings is set, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years later. Like, it's not.
So for a lot of the things, they kind of have like a blank canvas.
Yeah, well, they both have a blank canvas. They've done a very good job of like implying. So some of the things that like they've done really well subtly. The way the elves get from Valinor to Middle Earth involves them fighting another tribe of elves to steal their boats. And Galadriel gets separated with her group, and so they have to go up north and go through basically like the Bering Strait, the kind of ice fields and ice plains. So, but they don't have the rights to show that or tell that story. So instead they showed her going up north for another reason entirely.
Yeah. Essentially hunting Sauron down. Yeah.
And telling they got to tell that same story.
Yeah.
Or Finrod, for example, her brother, he dies when he's captured by, I don't remember if it's Morgoth or Sauron, but he's captured by one of them, and he's killed by werewolves. Well, in the show, they just say he, was killed by Sauron, which is kind of true. The werewolves were in Sauron's dungeons. But when they show his body, they show claw marks all over him. So they've done a really good job of like, hey, we can't say this, but we can show it. Like we can kind of show you and let you, if you know, if you don't.
And you told me the same thing happened in episode 3 with, is it Elrond? Elrond's brother, right?
Elrond's brother.
In the painting.
Yeah, so Elrond had a twin brother. Elrond's parents were a human and an elf. It's a little more complicated than that, but Elrond's parents were a human and an elf. Elrond is known as Elrond the Half-Elven because he's half-elf.
Yeah.
Half-elves in Lord of the Rings have the ability to choose whether they are an elf or a human, which is why in the movies Arwen can choose a mortal life.
Wow.
Galadriel doesn't get to make that choice. The other elves don't get to make that choice. It's only because she's half-elven that she gets to make that choice. But they don't say that in the movies. They make it a love story. And it still is a love story, right?
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. It's the circumstance of her birth that lets her do that. So Elrond's twin brother chose to be a mortal man. Elrond chose to be elven, and his brother chose to be a mortal man, and he founded Numenor. So in that painting, they're talking, Elendil's talking about his either his father, his grandfather, great grandfather, whatever, is Elros's is Elros.
Yeah.
And so he's like, they're talking about Elros, and Galadriel just says, "Oh, well, I know his brother," and then they show the painting. Like, okay, figure it out, folks. Like,
yeah.
We're not here to tell you.
Yeah.
Matt, they did not get all the rights to Tolkien's work. The Tolkien estate will probably never give up the rights to anything but what they currently have given up the rights to. The reason for that is Tolkien didn't publish the rest of it. The rest of it was published after he died. So they don't mind it.
It's all unfinished, technically.
It's all unfinished, yeah. So they don't mind it being out there, but because he didn't publish it, they don't want,
Got it.
They want it to be there for like people who are big diehard fans of Tolkien can read it.
Yeah.
But they don't want like the general public to go, "Oh, well, this is like, look, in the freaking I think it's called Tales of Middle Earth or History of Middle Earth. Numenor has like flying airship zeppelins. Like some of the stuff is crazy dumb. Like, Oh, that's interesting, Andy. I didn't know that. Okay. Cool. Good to know.
Oh, that is cool. They still kind of include it as a factual thing. That's pretty cool.
I mean, because it is it is still fact, right?
Like if I didn't have you, I would have never it would have crossed my mind that Elrond had a brother, just from that little tidbit.
Picture. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that, and if Andy, if they include those kind of facts, it's cool for fans to be like, oh, okay, connect the pieces. It's not going to play a major storyline, but now I know a little bit more about this character or this or that or whatever.
Well, so you want to know the fucked up thing too? It means that Aragorn and Arwen are related.
Oh God.
Because, if you think about it.
Wow. What's up with all the shows we have right now? Is all about incest. It's all about incest.
I have a feeling, Jake. I have a feeling next week this show is going to be called Ring of the Dragon or something, and we're just going to talk about both.
100%.
Okay, great.
The rings of the dragons. There we go.
That show's great. That show's so fucking killing it.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay. Let's get back to this. So, we've got 3 episodes to kind of discuss, and we don't have to do like a deep dive in every single one, but like you said, the first 2, to me, it almost felt like, because we haven't had Lord of the Rings in a while, right? We had the Hobbits, but they weren't really, they were never on the same level as Lord of the Rings, obviously.
No.
And they're very much trying to give us that feel with the show of the originals, more so than the Hobbit, obviously.
And I haven't rewatched the Hobbit movies since they came out.
Neither have I.
But if I remember correctly, I think they're good. I don't think they live up to. I don't think they live up to the Lord of the Rings, and I think that's the problem.
It's because it's a lot of special effects driven too.
Yeah.
Whereas the originals were so practical heavy.
Yeah. Well, they were practical heavy, and they I mean, there's a lot of special effects, especially in Return of the King. There's a lot of special
Yeah.
effects.
Well, all the ghosts and shit. Yeah.
Well, the ghosts, but also like half of those armies are special effects.
Mhm.
But they're really clever at how they used it. I don't think they were as clever with
The
the Hobbit films, but they
You can
also
just
had,
tell.
but they also had less time to make them.
Yeah.
Because of the director swaps.
Yeah.
Harrison, yeah, you're right. There's 60 years separating them, but well, there's 60 years separating Aragorn, but not Arwen, right? Arwen's only 3 generations removed. Aragorn's 60 generations removed. So, okay, let's talk about. I don't think there's really a plot to talk about, right? But the characters.
Yeah,
right?
it really picks up in 3 as far as plot goes, but 2 is more so just about like it's like an introduction into not just the world, but also who we're going to be following. Is more so what it's about.
Because we kind of have a couple central characters. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get Elrond in this episode.
Yeah, I felt like he was going to be a big part. Now I'm kind of like second guessing that.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, the title, right?
Yeah,
title's called Rings of Power.
No rings yet. No rings.
There's no rings yet. The rings don't exist.
The show. I guess the show is basically gonna be about them being made.
Right.
Because
in episode 2 we see Elrond talking to Celebrimbor. And
which I had to Google.
Absolutely, you have to Google because he's not ever mentioned anywhere.
No. And I learned this dude is like a legend.
Yeah, that was another clever thing they did was he mentioned the Silmarils, which were these 3 gems that were those trees at the beginning, those big glowing trees. The Silmarils were gems that captured their light. So they were like super sought after and considered amazingly beautiful, like the greatest work of art ever made.
Yeah.
And Celebrimbor talks about how he wants to do something as beautiful as the Silmarils. And that's where he kind of gets into making the Rings of Power. And he makes 19 Rings of Power. So 9 for the men, 7 for the dwarves, 3 for elves. And then Sauron makes
20.
Makes it.
So there's 20 overall.
There's 20 overall. Oh,
Okay.
There's actually more. He makes,
but as far as like the official ones,
well, he makes before he makes the Rings of Power, he makes lesser Rings of Power kind of as practice.
Got it.
And that's why, like when Gandalf first sees the ring in Fellowship, he doesn't know what it is. He thinks it's one of the lesser Rings of Power.
Got it.
Because it just turns him invisible. It doesn't, do a bunch of other stuff. But so, yeah, I do think we're still going to follow Elrond, but I think there's a lot to get through with Numenor. The Numenor plotline is pretty central to this whole story. Because we have Elendil and Isildur, who are shown in Fellowship of the Ring, are talked about all through.
Yeah, Isildur's kind of important.
Elendil's kind of important. Right? Narsil belonged to Elendil, and Isildur took the One Ring after the last alliance of men and elves.
Yeah.
We have, so that's kind of a big central plot line, and Queen Miriel and Al-Pharazôn are both kind of a big deal in the story. Are
they mentioned in Lord of the Rings?
They're not. Well, they're mentioned in the appendices. I don't know that they're mentioned in the actual book. At least I assume they're mentioned in the appendices, right? Like,
yeah, because obviously the ending of episode 3 where Miriel was like, the elf is shown. Like, they've been expecting Galadriel to show up.
Yeah.
And clearly it's going to be a big part of what's going on. And then we were talking before we went live of the fact that it's Numenor?
Numenor.
That it's not around when we get to the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Like it's gone. It's just disappeared.
Right. Well, so, and I will say, right, like, so a couple things. Anarion or Elendil and Isildur talk about Isildur's brother.
Mm-hmm.
because Isildur doesn't want to enter the Navy. He wants to go west where his family is. And Elendil says something about following your brother Anarian's footsteps.
Yeah.
So what happens when eventually Isildur, Elendil, and Anarian are going to leave Numenor and go found Gondor and Arnor.
They go to Middle Earth, right?
They're going to go to Middle Earth, and they're going to create Gondor, basically.
Yeah.
And
that's just for a fan like me.
Yeah.
That's the kingdom and Return to the King, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, I lost my butt. Hold on. It's Kingdom and Return of the King, and there used to be another kingdom as well called Anarian, or called Arnor. So Elendil rules Arnor, and then the two brothers rule Gondor.
Gondor. Okay.
And the Witch King destroys Arnor.
Got it.
So the big Ringwraith leader.
The one that Miranda Otto kills in Return of the King.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No man can kill him.
Yeah. I am no man.
But so as far as like characters that have shown up so far, that yes,
Vapion.
Yes,
Vapion. This is how I feel. Yes, 100%.
Yes.
I'm just agreeing with everything that's being said. Yes.
So as far as characters that show up in Lord of the Rings, we only have 5 characters that show up in Lord of the Rings right now.
That we know of.
We know Gil-galad, Galadriel, and Elrond, because Gil-galad is fighting at the last battle. He's the one when Elendil is killed by Sauron. Gil-galad is killed at the same time.
Oh, okay.
He's the elf that dies at the same time.
Got it.
And then we see Isildur, Elendil, and Elrond and Galadriel, and presumably Sauron's in this, and presumably the unnamed stranger is someone.
Which is who? I don't know what that is.
The guy that fell from the sky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's like a dozen theories on who that guy could be. He could be Gandalf. He could be Sauron. He could
literally be anybody.
Yeah, he could be one of the Blue Wizards.
Yeah. What, Sean? Let me ask you. What do you mean for what you know and what we've seen so far? Where are you at with that?
I don't. Okay, so here's my issue. Hobbits aren't really talked about during the Second Age. So this all takes place during the Second Age. Hobbits kind of don't really show up until the Third Age. So all the Hobbit characters are new characters for the show.
Could they be a descendant of the Harfoots?
Well, the Harfoots are the hobbits we see in the Shire are a mix of Harfoot, and then I think it's Stoutheart and something else. There's 3 different Hobbit sub species that by the time they're all in the Shire, they're all
they're just hobbits. Okay,
they're just hobbits. Yeah.
Okay.
The issue with it being, Harrison, that's exactly right. And because if the hobbits aren't there, there's no one happy in the show. Like hobbits are meant.
It's so true.
But
it's so true. The show and storyline for Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and now this would be so depressing if the Hobbits or Harfoots were not in it.
Well, because the hobbits are supposed to be they're free from the worries of the world.
Yeah,
and it's weird that Bilbo and Frodo got involved. Before that, hobbits just didn't get involved.
They just stayed in the Shire. They had the Shire. That was it.
With the casting and attitude of Nori, it's very clear that hey, these are supposed to be they made her look like Frodo. Absolutely, it's the same freaking hair and everything.
And they're pushing her as one of the main characters, giving her as much screen time as someone like Galadriel, which is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that the show, I don't want to say who I think the stranger is, because frankly, that's the one I don't know. But I think they're trying to make us think it's Gandalf. Because Gandalf is a friend of the hobbits. He's the only one of the wizards that visited the hobbits. In the books, Radagast says he had no idea where the Shire was. Saruman blatantly dislikes hobbits, and the Blue Wizards go east to the Easterlings, which are the guys with the not the in the last battle. There's the different humans.
Yeah.
They're one of the humans that fight the last battle, the Easterlings.
Okay.
So we also see the stranger like communicating with moths and fireflies, which is something Gandalf did. But Radagast also did that. We just don't see it in the movies. But we know Saruman didn't do that.
So it seems like you're kind of leaning towards him being an actual wizard, one of the wizards.
I think they're trying to make us think he's a wizard.
Okay.
I don't think he's a wizard. If
Okay.
I had to guess, he's probably a Balrog.
I've seen that out there.
Because,
Which is crazy because how does he turn into that thing?
Well, here's the thing, Jake. The Balrogs and the wizards are the same species.
What?
They're both Ishtari. The wizards choose to come to Middle-earth looking like old men. The Balrogs choose to serve Morgoth as those fire demons.
So you think there's a chance at some point he turns and becomes a Balrog?
Yeah, I think. Well, but okay. So
we did see a Balrog in the trailer.
Yeah, so there is a Balrog in the trailer, right?
There was one in the trailer.
And that's partly where my thought is coming from. But the other issue with that is in the established lore, right? We know when Saruman, Radagast, and Gandalf, we know when they come to Middle-earth.
Okay.
And the first place they go is the Grey Havens, which is in Noldor, which is where Gil-galad is, where we see Galadriel meet the king at the beginning, where she meets Elrond at the beginning. Sorry, thank you, Harrison.
Maddie, you're my thought.
Harrison, you are right. The Ishtari are specifically the wizards. The Maiar are both of them.
Harrison, please come back here every week.
Yes, please, because there's so much that I have to remember for this crap.
Yeah, I am no help in this situation.
No,
none.
Well, but that's the point, right? The point is you want to learn it.
Yeah.
Right. And you're the audience window for this one. Matt, there's not a person in there. It is a person. Well, I mean, technically, it's Shadow and Flame.
It's not a suit, but yes.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. They're not a person. They're, to quote Anakin, I'm a person. And no, the other line. Are you an angel? Are you an angel? Would be the adequate quote. Fuck, man. Okay, so we know the wizards don't come till the Third Age.
Okay, and this is the Second Age, so we got a while until they're supposed to come.
Right.
Okay.
We also know that the Balrogs were there during the First Age.
Interesting.
So
we're right in the middle.
We're right in the middle.
Okay.
Like, where are we going? You know? So I don't know who it is. I think I know who. I have two really good guesses on who Halbrand is.
Yeah, Halbrand is, and I said it. I think I said it last week, and I kind of picked off of some other people just because I don't know Lord of the Rings that well, obviously. But I was thinking, like, if Sauron's going to show up in this show, and I had learned via someone else that he could like come back and like become someone else, or essentially shapeshift.
He used to take. He took. The way it's worded is he took fair form.
Okay.
And he appeared as a beautiful elf.
Yeah. So, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe he's disguising himself to Galadriel as Halbrand. Being that she's pretty important. Okay. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. From my end,
I don't want to spoil. If I'm right, the problem is if there's two. I think there's two very solid options on who Halbrand is. I think the writers are trying to lead us in one direction. I'm hoping, and I'm not going to take credit for this one. I'm going to say Rachel Cushing gave me this idea when she appeared on Casterly Talk with Ken and Aiden. Alden, not Aiden. She had said that it's possible that Halbrand is the Witch King. The Witch King of Andor.
You told me about this before we went live, and that's crazy.
Which is the leader of the Nazgul.
Because at the end of episode 3, they're making it seem like he's like this king who's supposed to raise up the Southlands.
And we know that the rings all went to human kings.
And we know that the Southlands eventually go bye-bye.
Yeah, they become Mordor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, I think that'll happen sooner rather than later in the show.
It kind of seems like it's going to be a big part of the show, like this, like the driving the home that the Southlands are going to disappear, and it's eventually going to become Mordor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there are lands south of Mordor, like that are human-controlled countries. Yeah. That don't really appear in Lord of the Rings. That's where the Mumakil, the big giant elephants, come from. Okay. They come from the south of Mordor. But yeah, the realistically, the show's trying to tell us that it's Sauron. And this is a minor spoiler. The reason I say that Pharazôn and Miriel are important is because the reason I say that Pharazôn and Miriel are important is because in the Silmarillion, they are tricked by Sauron, which leads to the downfall of Númenor.
Interesting.
So, and the way what happens in the Silmarillion, which will not happen here, it will happen differently here. Sauron is defeated in battle and then taken captive by the Númenorians. So at the end of the episode, where is Halbrand?
What happens? Yeah.
He's taken captive by the Númenorians.
Very interesting.
Also,
do you think they'll reveal that? Like let's just say, hypothetically say that he is. Okay, go ahead.
But wait, there's more.
Oh God.
Sauron served the Valar. I might be getting the deity.
One of the gods. One
of the supreme beings served the one that was the smith.
Oh.
And what does he do? The first thing he gets in town. Hey, I want a job as a blacksmith.
Hey now.
Hey, I got this plan to make these rings. Can I use your forges?
Whoa.
Because right now the Númenorians are way more advanced than the elves.
They feel like the higher being right now.
They are Atlantis.
Yeah, that's what they. Okay, that's a good comparison. They feel like they're higher than everybody else.
We should just get
Harrison on here.
Yeah, and then so they like that's a whole thing. Like he goes in, he's like, "Hey, can I use your forges?" And they're like, "No, you need a pin." And then he brutally murders people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. If we think they're trying to set Halbrand up as an Aragorn character.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's not going to be.
Well, he might be, I think.
Nah.
And this is where that Witch King theory comes in, right? He could be who he's saying he is, right? And if he is, yeah, maybe there is a redemption arc for him and he goes to try to unite the Southlands and then fails and gets the ring, or gets the ring and is corrupted by the ring, right? That's a possibility, because if he tries to unite the Southlands and then someone comes to him and says, "Hey, here's this ring of power that will make you a better ruler, make your land safer, all this stuff." Yeah, you're going to take it. I don't know. I feel like they're trying to, because then we also have, the episode title is Adar, right? Like, it's possible that that's who they say it is, and it's Sauron. But I don't know.
Yeah, because the end of the episode was a blurred figure walking up when after the fight broke out with Arendir. Arendir. Who? I'll put this out there. He's my favorite thing in the show right now.
He's so great.
He is my favorite thing in the show.
He is him and his the captain of the watch, and
who got brutally murdered.
And the other elf. They're like the best depiction of elves that we've had yet.
Really?
In my opinion, because they're supposed to be very stoic, but also have this sort of trickster side, this jokey side. The friend showed that really well. Like Galadriel's characterization is not great in this show. If anything, it's kind of weird. Like if you she's been put in the forefront as like the main character, the person we're supposed to be following. She right now, like I can't hook onto her like I'm hooking onto Arondir. Right.
Like I'm obviously invested in the story with Numenor and all that stuff. Like I'm interested, but I am more focused in loving what's going on with Arondir and other things rather than Galadriel, which is a little bit of a bummer.
Well, like in episode 2, that whole plot line with Elrond and Durin was so good.
Yeah.
Like that was that was my favorite segment we've had so far, was just Elrond and Durin being an elf and a dwarf having a dinner party.
Just to confirm, that is where they are, is where the Balrog is in the Fellowship of the Ring, correct?
Yes. Khazad-dûm becomes
empty space.
Well, it becomes Moria. Moria is the Elvish word for dark pit or black pit or something.
Got it. Okay.
So after the dwarves are all slaughtered at Moria, the elves begin calling it Moria.
Okay.
And then Balin from The Hobbit goes back there to try to reclaim Moria. That's why Gimli thinks that Balin is still alive, is because the last he heard was that Balin went back to reclaim Moria.
Okay.
But he didn't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, Matt, it did. Except the Uruk-hai do not get burned by the sun, but the orcs did get burned by the sun.
And the Uruk-hai, aren't those the ones in Lord of the Rings?
Those are the bigger. There's orcs and Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings. The Uruk-hai are the ones that we see Sauron making in the pits.
Yeah, they were like being born in like the vessels and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the orcs were the ones
helping
make them. Yeah.
Got it.
So orcs, and that's one of the reasons why Mordor is shrouded in shadow, is because that way the orcs can live there. And because when they leave, I just watched Fellowship last night. When they leave Moria at the end of Fellowship, Boromir says, "Let the hobbits, catch their breath and rest," because they're mourning the death of Gandalf. Yeah. And Aragorn says, "The hills will be crawling with orcs by nightfall." Because the orcs can't come out right now, they have to wait till there's no sun.
Got it.
So they don't explain it, but that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting. The show's so interesting. The way they're characterizing everyone, like, I think outside of Galadriel, I like all the casting. It is a little weird that, like, to me, Isildur and Aryan, the sister.
I think Aryan,
Isildur and the sister and the dad don't all look related, which is weird to me.
Yeah.
The sister looks like she's related to the dad, but I don't know. Isildur doesn't really look like he's part of the family. But I think they all do look like they're. I do think the three of them all look like they could be the forefathers of Aragorn, but they just don't all three.
They have the vibe. They have the look.
They have the right posture. The right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, because it obviously happens. Isildur is the guy that Aragorn is essentially afraid of becoming. Right. Exactly. The entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, that's who he's terrified to become until the very end. So.
It's hammered like freaking Fellowship. There's so many times. Amaru, I know how it's spelled. I don't remember how it's pronounced.
Yeah, Arion,
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't dislike Galadriel. I like her character. I just like when she was talking to Muriel and Farazan. I don't know. She kind of seemed a little too combative for my taste. Like, she's kind of this great diplomat who like bridges this gap with Gimli in Fellowship. You know, and.
But I mean, again, maybe the experiences we see her go through in this show is what transforms her into that character.
Of course, I definitely think that's what they're doing.
Because it's thousands of years. Like, she got a long time.
They are truncating that timeline down a lot. But even if it's just hundreds of years, I mean, absolutely. But and of course, she doesn't yet have Lothlorien, and she doesn't have a Ring of Power yet. So
what's Lothlorien?
That's the forest she lives in.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So at some point in this show, she will go found Lothlorien, and then get one of the rings.
Got it.
Because she has Nenya. If you watch the extended cut of Fellowship, she mentioned she like shows Frodo her ring as like, this is my ring. Look at my ring, Frodo. I've got one too. But
do you let's I want to talk about this real quick. Do you like, so we're 3 episodes in, it's very early. It's only been 2 weeks of the show. They dropped the first 2 at once. Kind of getting a lay of the ground right now with the characters, kind of where they're going with the story. Do you like the direction that they've kind of picked up with so far?
I do. I definitely do.
Because it's a very like it's a big story. It's very Game of Thrones, right? There's like 4 or 5 different areas.
It reminds me of like season 2 of Game of Thrones, where we're like completely
spread out everywhere.
Plot points. I do like that. I think that they've done a great job of establishing the visual look of the world.
It's gorgeous.
It's definitely ridiculous. Like this episode especially definitely felt like Middle Earth. I think there were parts of episode 1 and 2 that didn't really feel like Middle Earth. They felt like generic fantasy. Like, in my opinion, the Harfoots look like they could be out of Willow or, some other film. But we're definitely seeing with Numenor, Numenor flat out has the Minas Tirith, platform in the middle. We see that viewpoint. We see that visual image. One of the things with fantasy literature and fantasy storytelling is this idea of stagnation, this idea that because magic exists, because the gods are real, and because all of these factors, technology seems to sort of stagnate and culture stagnates. A lot of fantasy storytelling, even if we look at Game of Thrones, the story, the full picture of Game of Thrones takes place over 400 years. It might be 350 years. And even farther back, right? Like the Night King and the First Men and all that stuff, like that happened so long ago. And yet the world is still stagnated. That is important to fantasy literature because you're supposed to see these long lineages, these long histories, whether for good or ill, right? It doesn't change. But if we come back to Middle Earth and it doesn't look like Middle Earth, that's a yeah.
Hi, Jill.
If Jake says hi, even though you just talked to him. If we come back to Middle Earth and it doesn't look like Middle Earth, I think they did a great job with, for example, I think they did a great job with Gil-galad, Galadriel, and Elrond, making them look like their future incarnations in Lord of the Rings. Just like whenever we do see Narsil, it will look like, or Andoril, it will look like the sword we're familiar with, right? It's not going to look like something else. It'll look like the sword we're familiar with. It's one of the reasons why the Balrog in the trailer looks like the Balrog we're familiar with, even though that's not the depiction we're familiar with. Like, that's not the depiction from the books. In the books, it's described completely different. Um, but they're going to give us what we're used to seeing, because if we don't come back and see that, we're not going to be into it.
Yeah.
As far as the story and the characters, I'm curious to see where it goes. Right now, I'm loving the show. I'm looking forward to, as soon as it comes out, I'm watching it.
You watch it every Friday, Thursday night, whatever.
I watch Thursday night at midnight, right?
Yeah.
It's I like it. I think, like, what's funny is some of the characters I think are shown the best are Halbrand, Arian, and Nori.
The ones that don't have history.
The ones that aren't from the books. Like, those are the ones they've done so well with.
Because there's no expectations there, right?
There's no expectations.
You have no idea what's coming with them, so you're kind of just learning as it goes.
But I also think that the writing is better for them, right? Like, I think they've done a better job writing them, and I think that I don't know. I just
they're a little. Well, no, I mean, I agree with you. I think that right now, not to say it's going to be that forever, but I think.
Oh, and Arondir. Arondir.
Yeah, Arondir. I just think that they're a little bit more interesting at the moment.
Right.
Not to say that Galadriel's not. She's very important. She's obviously going to be very important, but they're all intertwined in these other these big stories and separate sides of the world and etc. But right now, their characters are just a little bit more interesting than others, and I think it's just because they've kind of been put in the forefront, specifically in episode 3, right? Like, they were a big part of episode 3, and 3 is by far, I think, in my opinion, the best episode so far. And they were pretty much like the 3 focal points of what was kind of going on.
Yeah, and I will also say, I think Elendil is I really like Elendil, the little we've seen of him.
He's the father, right?
He's the father, yeah.
Yeah, I like him too. I do.
I also think that because there's a struggle there that, like, is done really well in subtext, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they say in the show, hey, your name translates to elf friend.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I also think Queen Muriel is working with him. Whether or not
with Elendil?
Whether or not he knows it.
Oh, like she's on his. Wait. Explain that a little bit more.
Because she put him in charge of Galadriel.
Oh, so like she has a different motive compared to what she's showing.
Right.
Okay.
Because the people of Numenor have betrayed the elves. They've betrayed the elves. They've betrayed the Valar.
So you're saying she's actually a fan of wants to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I can see that. Maybe that's what that thing was at the end with their father.
Right.
Or her talking, I should say.
And because before that, this was something that confused me until I thought about it and rewatched a couple of the scenes. Elendil mentions that Elros is still around, possibly in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see her in the tower. When we see her in the tower, she's talking to someone, say, hey, the elf appeared.
That would be interesting.
So if that's Elros would care.
Could they do that, though?
Could they do that? Would
they
do that?
I thought it was about the right stuff. They couldn't do that.
Well, they can and they can't, right? Like, I would have to go look at what's actually in the appendices.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't she say father?
She did. Which
we're spitballing.
Hold on. Here's another thing, right? Here's something we need to get out of the way with the Numenorians. They do not have normal human lifespans.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're human, but they live.
Didn't know that.
They live hundreds of years, like 300 to 500 years.
Okay.
Even Aragorn lives to 210.
What?
Yeah, like they're not human in the same way that.
Are there any basic humans in Lord of the Rings?
Yes, because they call Halbrand Low Man.
Oh, so he's an actual human.
He's an actual human.
Okay.
The Numenorians helped the elves in the war against Morgoth.
Got it.
And the Southlanders fought with Morgoth against the elves.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why the Numenorians are granted this, like, special star island and, all this stuff, right?
Okay.
in the Silmarillion, there is the faction of the Kingsmen and the faithful. And the faithful are the ones that are still faithful to the Valar.
The gods.
The gods.
Okay.
Elendil will eventually become the leader of the faithful. He doesn't know that yet, right?
Oh.
Like he's struggling with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Elendil is over 300 years old at the Battle of the Last Alliance.
Damn.
So when he dies, he's like 300.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Like I see Maddie and Sean talking about how, or Andy and Sean, how Aragorn is in his 8. What?
Yeah.
I had no clue.
I thought it was like 60s, but yeah.
Wow.
They're probably right, not me, because I don't know.
I mean, I guess that makes sense because I mean he essentially grew up with the elves, right?
He did. Yeah. Elrond fostered. This is the other thing that like the movie doesn't show correctly. Elrond fostered the line of Elendil because he's their uncle.
Yeah.
Like when they like,
and it's never mentioned.
It's never mentioned.
Never mentioned. Okay.
It's mentioned that Elrond grew up there.
Yeah. Okay.
Or sorry, Aragorn grew up there.
Yeah.
But it's not mentioned that so did Aragorn's dad and grandfather and great grandfather.
That's wild.
In the extended cut, they imply that Aragorn's mother is already dead, and that Aragorn's mother was the one that brought him there, so that he'd be safe. But in reality, it's Elrond had fostered their whole line, hoping that one of them would become
the true king.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
good to know. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I did this show with Sean. I'm learning so much right now.
This is great. I love this.
I'm learning so much.
Let's do this for all the fantasy shows.
Down.
When's Wheel of Time back?
That's a good question.
Let's do that for all.
That's a really good question. I mean, I know that they've already greenlit it for season 3, so we have a while over that show.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less positive on that show.
We'll get that show another time. I'm sure we'll talk about the show eventually. Okay, is there anything like major that we've missed that we need to cover? You know, we kind of like jumbled together 3 episodes, and it'll be a lot more clean going forward because it's an episode. But is there anything that we should discuss or need to discuss going into next week?
No, I don't think so.
That's cool. It adds so much more now. Like when I go back and watch them, knowing all this is going to add so much more as I watch.
Well, so the other thing too, Elrond's sons are like, they're in the books, and they go with when Aragorn goes to the city of the dead and the betrayers. Mm-hmm. Elrond's sons go with him. Like, there's a whole.
But they don't in the movies.
They don't in the movie. Well, it's also Elrond's son and like 80 soldiers go with him. But in the movies, it's just Gimli, Legolas, and
it's just the 3 of them. Yeah,
Aragorn.
Wow.
And like Arwen also, like when Arwen rescues Frodo and like the river comes and crushes the Nazgul and whatever. Yeah. That's also not Arwen in the books. That's another elf who like, because there's a scene. It's so funny. There's in the books, and I can't remember the name of this elf. Maybe someone in the chat. Maybe Harrison knows. There's this elf that he had gone back to Valinor and then came back to Middle Earth, which doesn't happen. They're not supposed to do that. But so, oh boy, when you put on the ring, you don't actually become invisible.
Well, it almost looks like you enter another dimension.
You enter the world of the unseen.
Okay, another dimension,
which is where. Glorfindel. Thank you, Andy.
That's my boy Glorfindel.
which he is in the movie. He is in the movie, but like just in the background. Maybe Rue. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look. I'd have to go rewatch that scene. Well, I think the sons are the ones that bring him Andoril in camp. In the movie, it's Arwen that brings him Andoril or Narsil. But I think in the books it's the two sons that bring him Narsil. I'm not sure. Okay, so Glorfindel went back to Valinor, and then came back to Middle Earth. Because of that, he had a presence in the unseen, in the lands of the unseen, or in the unseen.
Without a ring.
Without a ring, the wizards, the Balrogs, and the Ring Wraiths all have a presence in the land of the unseen. And because of that, when you put on the ring, you could see them.
Yeah.
When Frodo takes off the ring, once he's already been there, he now can kind of see.
Once you've been there, you're locked.
But also because he was stabbed by a Morgul blade, what a Morgul blade does is it slowly turns you into a wraith, putting you in the land of in the realm of the unseen. So when Arwen shows up, he sees like this big bright light, which is how it's described with Glorfindel in the books. But it makes sense for Glorfindel because Glorfindel is described as a being of pure light in the unseen realm, in the realms, world of the unseen, whatever it's called. But it doesn't make sense for Arwen because why would anyways? I'm glad it's Arwen because Arwen needed a little more to do in the movies, so that
she wasn't in them a lot, so she needed more scenes.
Yeah, just so she's not throwaway love interest number 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm learning so much tonight.
It was Gothmog? Did he kill Gothmog? Right?
Sure.
Gothmog is I think it's either Gothmog or Gothmog. I don't remember how it's spelled, but it's he's the father of the Balrogs. He's the big bad evil Balrog.
Before we wrap up, Sean, I don't know if we showed this or not, but it's highlighted. I want to bring it up. This is Harrison's prediction.
Oh yeah. That I think so. The reason what I was saying about the wizards, we know that the 5 wizards came to Middle Earth during the Third Age. But we know that the 2 blue wizards came first. So it's possible that they're moving that backwards and making that one of the blue wizards. I would prefer that to it being one of the other wizards.
I don't know if I want to see Gandalf, if I'm being honest.
I'm kind of in the same boat.
Like we got 6 movies with him. I don't know if we need him. Maybe we do need him eventually, but I don't know if we need him right now.
Well, I think that we could put him in the epilogue, but like if there's an epilogue to this show, put him in the epilogue. But this show should end before Gandalf comes to Middle Earth. Because Gandalf comes, I think this show will end at the end of the Second Age.
Which makes sense. That makes sense.
Because that's when the last battle. We know there's
Sauron.
we know there's other battles.
Yeah.
Or
like the last major battle.
Yeah. Well, it's called the last battle, but it's funny to me that it's called the last battle, but we have a battle and we have multiple battles in Return of the Kings in which men and elves fight together.
Yeah.
It's called the last alliance of men and elves.
Okay.
Despite the fact that men and elves will fight at least Helm's Deep.
Right.
So,
which is by far the best part of the Lord of the Rings franchise. Anyway, just saying.
You think so?
It's the two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie.
I've Return of the King for me is.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of people's, and I get it.
There you go.
Oh yeah, so he's not even close to coming, officially anyway. Like he's not even close to coming.
But again, according to the books, right? We know they can change things, and we know they will change things.
Yeah, they have to.
And for me, I'm okay with adaptation so long as it's done well, right?
As long as you get the core, it shouldn't matter.
Because there's so much in the Lord of the Rings movies that is different.
Yeah.
Like already. Like fun fact, Sauron, not a big flaming eye. At no point is he a big flaming eye.
The weirdest thing I think that those movies do is
I think it makes total sense. Like he needed to have a presence in those films. And in the books, his emblem is an all-seeing eye.
Which is are they doing that now? The emblem that
Galadriel's a little bit
dealing with it, right? Okay.
Yeah. It kind of looks like an eye.
The shape of the Southlands.
Yeah, it kind of looks like an eye.
It does. It does.
Yeah. So his and they kind of took a bunch of concepts from the books and melded them into that big flaming eye, the Eye of Sauron. Because like the orcs had it on their armor and on their helmets, and like it would be graffitied on things that the orcs destroyed. And like when, you know, Frodo could feel him watching him when he put on the ring. And then there's the Palantiri and the crystal balls. You know, when Pippin grabs the Palantir, he sees Sauron because Sauron is also looking at the Palantir at the same time. So like they took all those concepts and made it the big flaming eye. And I do think it works for the movies. It's a great symbol for a villain, because otherwise we just wouldn't see the villain the whole movie.
He would just be a name. He would have just been a name. Yeah, I get it.
Like imagine Harry Potter if Voldemort never showed up.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, let's be honest, it's Lord of the Rings is arguably considered the best trilogy ever made, and they had a flaming eye as their villain. So they win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, and it's I do think Lord of the Rings might be, it's definitely top 2 greatest film trilogies of all time, right?
Star Wars is my pick, but I can't argue with someone who considers Lord of the Rings. So.
Well, here's my issue, right? Star Wars is my pick as well, clearly.
Although mine's very Marvel heavy.
I don't have any Lord of the Rings shit back.
Mine's very Marvel heavy at the moment that I just realized. So whatever.
But it's yeah, the prologue definitely does heavy lifting to make you furious. That's absolutely right.
And I hope that however many seasons we get with this show, that we do get him in some form, because I would like to finally see him in physical form. I would like to see that.
So let's talk about, there's the one character we haven't seen yet is the buzz cut blonde guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's Sauron.
It kind of makes sense.
Like, because it kind of also fits the description we get of Sauron, like, or at least the depictions I've seen of him when he takes his fair form. It's a blonde elf. I mean, that's a blonde elf, right? Actually, I don't know. I didn't look at his ears. Might be human. But
well, I don't know if he has a shot in the trailer without his hood on. I could be wrong.
That might, you might be right about that.
Yeah.
So we still don't know who that is. But like also if it is Halbrand, if it is Halbrand, I'd be okay with that too. Because
I think
look, Halbrand's a decent looking guy, right? Like they definitely cast him for a reason, you know. Like there's a certain, Tolkien had a way of making noble characters beautiful, or important characters beautiful. And it's whether right or wrong in modern, you know, discourse. And when we're talking about Tolkien, it's true, right? Like there are very few beautiful characters that are not also good or important, right?
Yeah.
Some of them could be bad, but they're important. If they're bad, it's because they were good and turned bad, and they're important.
Yeah.
So, with the exception of the wizards, you know.
Well, I think you know, we mentioned it. Look, we had to cover a lot tonight. We definitely zigzagged our way through it. Going forward, it's going to be a lot more kind of central conversation of what the episodes are telling us. We covered 3 episodes tonight. We're going to be able to get to 1 episode each week going forward. How many? Do you know how many episodes there are? Is it 8, 10?
There's only 8 episodes.
There's 8 of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're full. But they're full length episodes. So that
they're full hours. Like they do not shortchange it. They're very Game of Thronesy, where they give you a full hour.
Yeah.
They don't hold back, which I love. So yeah, look, every Monday evening, right here, guys, we're gonna be doing this. Myself and Sean, there's a good chance you'll probably see some guests pop in as well. People who really, really want to talk some Lord of the Rings, maybe have an interest in one episode or this episode. But I'm excited. I mean, this got me excited. I learned so much tonight.
We have a couple really good guests that want to come on. But Jake and I are busy. These guests are even busier.
Yeah.
So
we'll try. We're gonna try. We're gonna do our best. But if it's just us two,
and you'll probably see
Fun
you'll probably see Brian on here too.
yeah, no, I know Brian was dealing with a lot today, but he's a fan of the show. I mean, he's talked about it. He really likes the show, so he'll probably pop in as well. And yeah, we're gonna be talking Lord of the Rings every Monday. You won't see Jill. She just So that's a whole nother story. The fact that she won't even watch them, but
and Harrison, I think it's Mithril. I think they tried to frame it as if it's one of the Silmarils or the Arkenstone. Well, I don't think it's the Arkenstone. I think it's one.
What's Mithril?
Mithril is what Frodo's shirt is made out of.
Oh, okay.
That's what they mine in Mordor.
The bulletproof vest
in Moria.
The bulletproof vest, essentially.
Yeah, the bulletproof vest.
Okay. So, or the magic vest, I'll say, whatever.
Yeah, elven chain.
Okay, cool. All right. Sean, any final words before we wrap it up, man?
No, not really. Yeah, Thursday over on hold on, what's the YouTube channel called? The YouTube channel is called Smash Productions. Look, go to Twitter. Kevin Smets, Frank Janish, Brandon Hanna, and I are starting a Star Wars podcast called Scoundrels Inc. And our first episode, little introduction episode, and covering a little bit of D23 will be on Thursday. I don't know what time. It's not live, so I don't know what time it airs. We're filming it Wednesday, so I don't know.
I'm trying to find it on YouTube, and I cannot find it right now.
Yeah, I need to talk to Kevin about changing.
Yeah, I will put it in the description of this video when I find it. So anybody watching on the replay, it's
called Smash City Studios.
There you go.
Kevin Smets's KOTOR YouTube channel that is now going to be the home of our podcast.
Here,
if you didn't know, Kevin Smets does KOTOR movies.
Let me do this. There you go. It's in the chat, everybody.
See,
it's
7
in the chat.
Kevin SoCal 2K6. YouTube.com.
That branding. He's got to get that branding on point. Come on.
Yeah, now. I mean, he's got it. I don't think. Now, here's the problem, right? I don't think once you've changed to YouTube RL, you can change it again.
You have to pay to change it again.
Oh,
they make you pay to change it again. So, yeah. Look, Monday's here for Lord of the Rings. Thursdays on that link in the description for a brand new Star Wars podcast. Yes, another Star Wars podcast, but maybe one of the best Star Wars podcasts you ever listened to.
That's literally our tagline. Another Star Wars podcast,
as it should be. And Sean, you also stream. Do you want to plug the Twitch?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
All your fans already follow me on Twitch. I don't know.
You never know.
Okay, twitch.tv/Sean Sully. But I'm not streaming right now because I'm working on we're working on something else.
A little fun project that I know about.
It's a big project. Something
I'm not involved, but I know of it, and it's awesome.
But I wanted to talk to Brian about this. Brian was almost involved. Brian was on my short list.
Brian would probably really enjoy it, to be honest.
He's going to be on round 2. When I do round 2,
I think he would really enjoy it. Unfortunately, I don't have the time, Sean.
I think you would too. You just don't have the time.
I just don't.
You would love it. You would love it.
I don't have the time.
No,
I would love to have the time, but I don't have the time.
Well, okay, so I will. For anyone a few people know what we're talking about. Originally, I had 2 other guests. A couple were going to be part of the cast for that. Not the Damons, but if you're following that track, you're on the right track. And I just couldn't get them on because they're just too busy and they have a child. So it's.
I'm excited to see it. I'm excited. To see it, that's for sure.
Well, I have something to show you when we go off air.
Perfect. Love to hear it. All right, everybody. Well, make sure you guys are subscribed everywhere, following all that good stuff. We can't thank you guys enough for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Again, every Monday evening right here, talking the Rings of Power. As we get into episode 4 next week. So for Sean, for myself, thank you guys again, and we'll catch you guys next week.